2.30.110, paren 1, close paren, small I, close paren, using video conferencing technology provided by Microsoft Teams. No action was taken. Tonight's virtual City Council meeting is being brought to you using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. We're also broadcasting live on MITV Channel 21 and on the city's YouTube channel. City Manager Jesse Vaughn and some staff members will be participating in tonight's meeting, council chambers, and maintaining the recommended social distance. City Attorney Bill Park and some other staff members will be participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Public audience members are listening to the meeting by telephone or using the Zoom teleconferencing application. Again, welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Council members, please have your microphones turned on whenever the city clerk, Deborah Strada, conducts a roll call during the meeting. She'll be conducting roll calls so that we accurately capture each person's vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Benson Wong.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Weicker.
Here.
Councilmember Lee Sandoval. Here. Councilmember Jake Jacobson.
Here.
Councilmember Salim Neese.
Here.
Councilmember Craig Reynolds.
Here.
And Councilmember Dave Rosenbaum.
Here.
Great, thank you. Next, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Council, to ensure that only the U.S. flag is visible, please consider turning off your video camera or stepping out of view of your camera. And please join Councilmember Anderalt in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yesterday, I think many of you already know this, but yesterday the city and the island community learned of the passing of the legendary basketball coach Ed Pebble, who headed the Mercer Island High School boys team for 42 years before retiring in 2009. His 952 coaching victories were the most in state history, and he led the Islanders to 4 state championships. Coach Pebble had an incredible ability to motivate athletes to perform at their very best, and he left a positive impact on the lives of hundreds of students while exemplifying the core values of the Mercer Island School District. The community will miss him greatly, and our thoughts are with his family. We now move to the first item of business, which is to approve the agenda. Before entertaining a motion, I want to state that the Governor Inslee's Proclamation 20-28.8 regarding the Open Public Meetings Act extends the statutory waivers and suspensions through October 1. Council, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
I'll second it.
Been moved by Councilmember Jacobson and seconded by Councilmember Anderall to approve the agenda. City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Anderall.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
Councilmember Neese.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker.
Aye.
And Mayor Wong.
Aye. So the agenda is approved. For this meeting, we continue to utilize the Zoom platform. If you've heard this before, if a council member has a question, please raise your hand. I will do my best to recognize you in the order in which the hands were raised. After being recognized, you may ask your question. Everyone is asked to limit himself or herself to one question and to one clarifying question if necessary at a time in order to provide an opportunity to other council members to ask a question before a council member is given a chance to ask a second question. Next on the agenda, we have the city manager's report. And for that, we welcome City Manager Jesse Vaughn.
Good evening, City Council. Give me just a moment here. All right. Before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you, the City Council and the staff. A couple of weeks ago, I had an unexpected personal situation come up and literally had to drop everything and wasn't able to attend the council meeting. The staff had not very much notice, and so I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for allowing me to step out and take care of what I need to do. So I'm happy to be back this evening, and September 15th, hard to believe we're already at the middle of September. Lots of updates for you. Lots of resurgence right now, not in COVID. I should have used a different word there, but certainly an interest in the case counts in the county and as well in Mercer Island. So I wanted to let you know we are at 175 confirmed cases. Mercer Island has really been relatively flat in terms of cases for quite a while, and there are some murmurings about whether or not schools may be able to start considering some additional in-person learning based on the county statistics. So keep up the good work. We're doing a great job controlling the spread, and let's hope for continuing positive trends. Just a reminder that we do post anything and everything that we have passed through our channels related to COVID on our Let's Talk page, and the link is provided there. A handful of city service updates for you, City Council. The first is the Luther Burbank Docks open house is in full swing right now, although it's been pretty quiet because of the smoke. So we wanted to let you know the open house, both online and at the waterfront, if you make it to Luther Burbank, was supposed to go through the end of September. We've extended another week to October 7th. Basically, you can go down and take a look at the potential configurations and then provide us your feedback. So you can see in that photo there the display that we have up, and we certainly have set it up so that you can all visit and be socially distance. You can also take the survey on our Let's Talk page. So far, we've had 62 survey responses. I'd like to see more than that before we get to a final recommendation. So I'm setting a goal of somewhere between 300 and 400. By the way, if you go to the Luther Burbank Waterfront to participate in the online or the open house in person, you'll notice that the area of the waterfront where we have the handsome ballers that's been closed for quite a while is now under construction. So I'm pleased to say we'll finally be repairing that area, and that is going to continue to be closed off. But if you're going for the open house, you can still get there and get to the signage. Lots of signs up showing you how to safely access the waterfront and the open house boards on the docks. All right, thrift shop. So it's going well. As you know, we've been open on Sundays for several weeks now from 10 to 3. We did modify our operation this last Sunday because of the smoke, and we had to do everything inside. We're working on clearing inventory. So our gross sales over the last month, and I think this was 4 sale dates, I'm not totally sure on that, was almost $20,000. I'm not sure what the net is. 51% of our store sales came from people here on Mercer Island. So thank you, Mercer Island community, for supporting the reopening of the thrift shop. And we're continuing to process the backstock of merchandise. When we closed down in March, we did have quite a bit of inventory in the queue. And so if you're a shopper of the thrift shop, I do want to assure you that you'll continue to see new items on the floor as we work through that inventory. This Sunday, let's hope the smoky air is cleared and we can operate as normal. If it hasn't, we'll go to an indoor-only operation again. And I will give you a preview. Next week, we'll be coming back to the council to talk about the thrift shop remodel, and also talking about our plans to reopen the thrift shop, which involves some creative use of the community center and volunteers. So we'll be talking more about that next week, and it's hopefully good news all around so that we can start collecting donations again, maybe expand beyond Sundays only, and start to build back into a more normal rhythm, if there's anything normal these days. Big thank you to our thrift shop volunteers who are helping us right now on Sundays and also doing some behind the scenes work on other days. They're helping with online sales, stocking the floor on non-sales days, and they're also cashiering. So we fully anticipate, as we start to look towards ramping up our operation, bringing the community center on to help process donations, we will need more volunteers. And so this is a shout out. There'll be more promotion coming, that if you're interested in volunteering, if you're a past volunteer and you'd like to come back and you feel safe doing so, please certainly think about that. Reach out to us and we will get you connected. Fall, I have a theme going here on reuse and recycle. So fall recycling event, we were not sure this event was going to happen, but it is. So Saturday, October 17th, and there will be lots of promotion leading up to it. We will host our twice a year recycling event at the Luther Burbank South parking lot. There will be new COVID protocols in effect. So just a preview, volunteers working will be wearing masks and gloves. We encourage people arriving to also do the same. When you pack your car, think about how it can be unloaded quickly. The faster we can unload, the less exposure we have. And this will be a cash-only event. We don't have the means, the hosts don't have the means to do cards, but you have to bring exact change. We will be selling rain barrels and worm bins. Typically at this event, we do a food drive because we're not actually operating our food bank in the traditional sense. We will be accepting grocery gift card donations, which then go directly to YFS and our emergency assistance program. So more information coming. I just wanted to make sure, Council, you knew this event was on since it was questionable for a while. So that's great news. Okay, some city service updates, really fire department focused, and lots of good news stories to tell. So first of all, 9/11, last Friday, certainly I remember where I was on 9/11, and something we will never forget. A big thank you to the Jewish National Fund in partnership with Northwest Yeshiva High School, presented to our fire department and our police department a 911 memorial plaque. City Council, if we weren't in a COVID pandemic, we certainly would have done something more formal to receive this. But as you can see, our fire chief here and deputy fire chief accepted the plaque on behalf of the city. So thank you so much. It means a lot to us. Also, last Friday, firefighter Kent Bastrom represented Mercer Island by participating in a 9/11 memorial climb at the Space Needle. Thank you so much, firefighter Bastrom, for going out there and representing us. It certainly means a lot, and made it to the top. Quite a feat. Otherwise, I also just wanted to share with you the fire department. We're doing fine. I've had some questions lately. How are we doing on our personal protective equipment? Citywide, we're doing fine. We have stable stocks. This is something that our EOC team actively manages, and supplies are fine at fire. We also have no reported exposure for firefighters responding to calls. So we continue to remain very focused and diligent on the safety of our public safety personnel, and thank you to them for their great work. Also, a couple more updates from the fire department. Our crews did respond to a fire on September 12th involving a 14-foot tall arborvitae. It was in the 6500 block of 83rd Place. Fortunately, thankfully, the call came in quickly and we were able to knock it out. No, that's not a picture of the arborvitae. Just a reminder to our community, stay vigilant. We still have very dry conditions and fire risk is high. The cause of that fire is not been determined. Crews also responded, and this is what's in that photo, to a call for mutual aid assistance in the city of Covington, and they were helping with a brush fire. So we have been called over the period of the last week to go and assist in other areas that were battling fires. So again, our thanks to our fire department personnel for doing that. On a similar theme, we currently have 5 members of the fire department team deployed on what we think will be a 2-week assignment to Southern Oregon. 4 of them are pictured here, and they're part of a 70-member urban search and rescue team. And right now what they're working on is searching and documenting the destruction left from the Happy Farm fire. Just so you're aware, FEMA does reimburse the city for the costs associated with this deployment. And that does include our costs to backfill while these personnel are out working elsewhere on behalf of FEMA. So please keep our crews in your thoughts, and all of the crews right now that are out battling the fires. We look forward to having them back home safely, and thank you certainly for their service to the region during what is really an unprecedented fire season. Okay, this is really just some reminders. None of this is a surprise to you. We do have a burn ban on, which means no fires at all. You can use your barbecue and your propane heaters, but no open fire pits at all. And we're continuing to reevaluate conditions. We'll be working with the county and our other partners in the area on when it might be appropriate to lift the burn ban. So for now, the burn ban remains in effect. We also encourage you just to stay diligent generally right now. Disposing of smoking materials properly, checking your vehicle for dragging chains or other metal parts. Simple spark has been the source of a number of the fires. If you've got a flat tire, don't drive on your rim. All these are great reminders. Even hot exhaust pipes, if you're in a grassy area, could, under these conditions, lead to a fire. Another one is sparks for lawnmowers. This was on the list, and at my house anyway, our grass is completely dry. So if you if your lawnmower throws a spark, it could ignite a fire. Keep your yard green if possible. I just disclosed mine's not very green, but if it's not, just mow when it's safe to do so. And again, just be diligent in all of your daily practices. It will help reduce our risk. One other thing the fire marshal wanted me to pass along is now is a good time to look at the vegetation that's growing around your house. Fresh green vegetation is usually okay, but clearing debris from your house itself would help protect your house in the event that there's a fire nearby. So keep in mind, now unfortunately you can't do yard work because of the smoke, but maybe by this weekend would be a good time to get out and check the safety of your own yard and home. And finally, we've had some emails, and I know this, I think there was a thread on Nextdoor about Pioneer Park and the woody debris that is on the ground in Pioneer Park and whether or not that should be cleared. So what I wanted to tell you, Council, and I think you already know this in the community, is that our park forests are managed and monitored by ecologists and arborists that are on staff. So we're watching carefully. Woody debris that's on the ground, it really plays an important role in the ecological health of our forests, including Pioneer Park. So what might look like a fire load or potential fire load is, you probably know this, supporting lots of habitat, plants, animals, insects. And what most people don't think about is it's actually retaining moisture in the forest. So there are some circumstances where we go out and do some cleanup, but we don't clear the forest of the woody debris. To reduce fire risk, really the most important thing we can do is use our forests wisely and have good habits, extinguishing cigarettes and properly disposing of them. No fireworks or sparklers, obviously, in these areas. And if you happen to be out barbecuing, please pay attention to where you're depositing those ashes. In many parks around the region and at campgrounds, there's specific designated ash cans for you to use. So if you have other questions about forest load, we do have a very talented staff person, Elaine Summergren, that I would be happy to get you connected with. And finally, just a reminder, this usually isn't an issue in our parks, but if you're visiting other parks, parking on paved gravel areas and not on vegetation is also really important to minimizing fire risk. So there you go, everything you ever wanted to know about minimizing fire risk. All right, a couple more slides and then I'll wrap up real quick here. It is National Preparedness Month, and you're thinking, what, preparedness for what? Emergency Preparedness Month. And a little statistic here, according to FEMA, almost half of Americans have not discussed or developed a family emergency plan. Council, given the year that we've had, I thought it would be a good idea to remind everyone in our community, and by the way, this will be promoted, continue to be promoted out on our social media sites. Have a conversation with your family, make sure you have a plan, an emergency kit, and prepare for area-specific disasters. Things like earthquakes, mudslides, may or may not be relevant, some areas of the island here, and certainly fires. We have information to help you prepare on our website listed there, and certainly a very fantastic emergency management personnel. Jennifer Franklin would be happy to be a resource to you as well. Speaking of Jennifer Franklin, her contact information is at the bottom of this slide. The Map Your Neighborhood virtual event, a really common theme with this city manager presentation tonight. So this past week, we had a meeting with a group of neighbors who are working on a Map Your Neighborhood program. And it basically encourages islanders to get together with people that live nearby them to prepare for a disaster. Because if we have a serious disaster like an earthquake, we may have limited services for a long period of time. So we have to rely on those nearby. So what this program does is, first of all, it says, hey, get to know your neighbors. And there's a whole process that we walk neighborhoods through to help them prepare. Things like also selecting a site for where they would gather, and collaborating on who has skills and equipment to help each other. So if your neighborhood is interested in a Map Your Neighborhood exercise, we would be happy to support you in that effort. And again, council, this will be promoted. Sure you knew we were working on this as well. Jennifer Franklin's contact information is included on the slide. And another volunteers, thank you. So I just wanted to say again, thank you to our amazing emergency management volunteers. We continue to come up with things that we need help with, and they always rise to the occasion. The latest one was, although we had stopped giving out actual food as part of our food bank due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we did have some food remaining in our storage areas at Burbank. So our volunteers came in, helped gather up what was remaining, and we were able to donate it to the Rainier Valley Food Bank. So again, I just can't say enough. Every time we need something, we call and they respond. So thank you, emergency management volunteers. All right, I promise you I'm near the end here. So just a final reminder, there is some paving work going on at the Mercer Island Park and Ride. I believe it started this week. It's both repaving and some traffic coding and pavement markings. I'm getting ahead of myself. So they will be closing parts of the Park and Ride, and we anticipate the work will last about 6 weeks. Starting at 7 a.m. and probably wrapping up no later than 7 p.m. This is a sound transit project, so if you need more information, it's there. And for the community, if we have any updates on the project, we'll certainly be sure to send them out. The good news is, for this project, the Park and Ride isn't full, so it's a minimal impact to us right now. All right. Couple more items here and then I'll wrap up. The pop-up story walk. I'm really so excited about this. The Mercer Island Preschool Association, a wonderful partner of the city, has been reaching out, wanting to do something during the pandemic to support families, particularly with the little guys. We were able to come up, this was their idea, I take no credit for it, with a story walk, which is basically storyboards that are placed along a route in Burbank Park. It will be September 26th to October 17th. And the story is Tiny Perfect Things by M.H. Clark. So it's a half-mile loop that you take with your family and get to read the boards as you go. And you're probably wondering about COVID safety, so I will just remind you, there will be signage up encouraging folks to social distance and wear masks. But given that it's a half-mile loop, we think that this can be done safely. Again, thank you to Mercer Island Preschool Association for coordinating this, and also thanks to the wonderful Mercer Island Community Fund because they provided a grant to the Preschool Association to install this. So hopefully the smoke will clear and we can all get out and enjoy the pop-up story walk. All right, closing in on the end here, I promise. Oops, clicked too soon. Also, another great recovery story, COVID-19. Very pleased to say the Mercer Island Friends of the Library book sale has popped up in Town Center. They are working out of the former Chamber of Commerce storefront, and they are selling I believe the used or old library books Thursday, Friday, 9 to 1, and Saturday, 12 to 5. They are asking for cash or check, and they can do credit card sales for over $10. If you decide to come and shop, they've got some great finds there. I really encourage you to pop in. Please wear a face mask, and they do have protocols to ensure physical distancing inside the store. So this is a great way to support the Friends of Library, and I really want to say thank you. I know there's been a lot of community collaboration to pull this together, so it's wonderful that this is happening. And finally, City Council, just a reminder that we are having a special council meeting next week on Tuesday. And I shared with you on Friday, the council meeting packets will be published late this week. I'm embarrassed to say that I knew already last Friday that I would be running behind. So I'm aiming for end of the day Thursday or Friday morning at the latest. And I do appreciate your flexibility. Sometimes when we have back-to-back meetings, it's just really tough to make that turn. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jesse, and just thank you for highlighting all the great work that is happening on the island with volunteers. And I think I would speak on behalf of the entire council. Special kudos to our firefighters who are helping out in other parts of King County and down in Oregon. It's a difficult time for everybody on the West Coast. Tonight's agenda will not include in-person public appearances in accordance with Proclamation 20-28.8 and the governor's extended Safe Start order. However, individuals wishing to speak live during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone or using the Zoom teleconferencing application, provided, however, they have registered their desire to speak to the city clerk's office by 4 p.m. today. Our city clerk will call you by name or telephone number when it's your turn to speak. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak to the city council on any item. All remarks will be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual council member or staff member. If any person makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the council, I may request that the person leave the meeting. When it is your turn to address the council, please be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. I will be providing you with a 30-second and a 15-second warning when your time is about to expire. However, before we begin with public appearances, I want to remind the public that tonight we also have a public hearing on the emergency ordinance number 20C-17 to temporarily allow private parking and right-of-way use by businesses to meet Safe Start guidelines. Therefore, if you would like to make a public comment tonight specific to this emergency ordinance, we ask that you hold your comment until the agenda item is before the council later this evening. City Clerk, is there anyone who has signed up for public appearances that wishes to address the council?
Mr. Mayor, we have 4 people signed up for public appearances. The first one is Mr. Mark Madden. Mr. Madden?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Mark Madden. I'm a licensed professional engineer that has worked on regional transportation projects for over 40 years. I've specialized in traffic signal operations, transit operations, and traffic impact studies. I'm going to speak tonight on information that I gathered from Sound Transit on their open house they had a few weeks ago that had what I felt was information that was incomplete and very misleading. They mentioned that they expected 1,300 pedestrians to cross North Mercer Way at 80th during the morning peak hour. They mentioned that the signal cycled in 90-second cycles, and with a little arithmetic, they concluded there'd be 32 to 33 pedestrians each crossing. Now the facts. Signals aren't timed by the average number of pedestrians. They're timed by the maximum number of pedestrians, and that is usually much larger, and certainly would be in this case. The high number of pedestrians that are required to cross North Mercer Way would require a signal increasing what we call the walk interval. That's the walking man symbol you see on the traffic signal. That'd be maybe increased 20 to 30 seconds. This in turn increases the total cycle length of the traffic signal. And this in turn increases decreases the number of cycles you get per hour, which increases the number of pedestrians you get each cycle. But also increasing the cycle length makes longer reds for all the motorists. It backs up traffic further and makes them wait longer. Also very significantly though, is giving more time to pedestrians means less time for vehicles. And northbound at 80th and North Mercer Way, northbound left turn movement and westbound through movement in the morning is very critical. If you reduce the amount of green time that is available for those movements, that reduces the capacity. And if you reduce the capacity, if it reduces below the number of vehicles entering, in just minutes, there can be very long backups. Could back up traffic onto I-90, could back up Island Crest Way through the traffic signals to the south, could back up 80th through the town center. And there's
Mr. Madden, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, one more item is that traffic signals aren't very good with pedestrians. They can't distinguish whether there's one pedestrian or 80. You push the button and it knows there's a pedestrian movement necessary. So consequently, it's timed for the most pedestrians all day long.
Mr. Madden, you have 15 seconds, sorry.
This means all day long that vehicles would be waiting, thousands of vehicles be waiting too long for pedestrians that don't exist. This is in support of what the council is doing on the settlement agreement. I very much approve of what you're doing. It's going to have long lasting and impacts, and it's very important. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madden. City Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, the next person on our list is Ryan Ralphs. Mr. Ralphs?
Yeah, yes, I'm here. This is my first time doing this. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
can,
can,
Ryan.
sir.
Great, thank you. Council members, first off, thank you all for showing tremendous leadership during this pandemic, and that extends to city staff as well. This must be a difficult time in which you all find yourselves both personally and professionally, and again, I want to thank you. Especially with regards to land use and code compliance, I think the city is trying to do the best considering the limited resources that you have available. I understand the CPD is experiencing many changes and challenges, and I appreciate your focus on this department. Over the last 3 years, many of you have seen my desire and willingness for success of all parties on the issues before the council today regarding land use along East Mercer. I've shown myself to be a reasonable person and with good intentions, and it's because I want future success that I ask that you reject the amendment before you today. I don't see a positive and productive path forward. Rejecting this amendment is not a signal to anyone that you don't want the applicants to improve their facilities, reasonably expand their programming, or achieve their goals. Rather, rejecting this amendment is recognition that the best outcome for everyone can be achieved when the city can devote appropriate time, resources, messaging, and the personnel to do this project right. Rejecting this amendment encourages parties to take a more collaborative approach as well. If you have any doubts that this application has any legal deficiencies, then rejecting the amendment also gives space for these deficiencies to be analyzed without devoting a lot of resources towards litigation or confrontation. I don't see this moment as a confrontational moment for this project. I can see the city and the council acknowledging rather the realities of the situation. This issue is a priority, and we must take care of other priorities first so that we can give this issue the attention that it deserves. There's a strange but true logic to it. We must reject so that the future success of this project is possible. I think everybody in the community can understand that approach given the situation in which we find ourselves. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Deb, who's next?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, Mr. John Hall.
Mr. Hall. Mr. Hall, you're on mute right now. Mr. Hall, you're on mute. You need to there you go.
How's that?
Yeah, that's great, great. Okay,
Okay. Dear city council members, thank you for letting me tell them at tonight's meeting. I'm John Hall, reside at 9970 Southeast 40th Street, Mercer Island. I can't believe we're still discussing the CFC with Mr. Hill's amendment, especially since it should have never had been an option in the first place. As we have learned over the last 2 years of public involvement, I recommend that we reject the Hill amendment tonight. If applicants want to reapply and the applicant fits in with the residential neighborhood CUP rules and with the right procedure, then they should do so under the docket system as required. At this point in time, there's no city staff member still employed by the city who was previously involved in the CFC, who understands the complexity and the zoning conditions, regulatory limits, and the non-compliance issues necessary to meet the existing CUP regulations and agreements. To bring someone up to speed on that, I estimate that would take at least 6 months of full-time involvement to review 50 years of documents. You have to remember the previous staff was involved in this preferential treatment for 4 years, 2 years before it was made public. I simply believe the city does not have the bandwidth or the resources necessary to accomplish this right now. With no director of the CBD, an ongoing pandemic, and the city is facing so many other current difficulties, why add another? Why sacrifice critical Mercer Island services and devote resources to this? Please reject the Hill Amendment tonight. It's absolutely the right thing to do. Regards, John Hall.
thank you, Mr. Hall. City Clerk, we have a last speaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have Mr. Matt Golbach. Mr. Golbach?
Yeah.
We can hear you. Oh, you're on mute now. Matt, you're gonna have to unmute yourself.
Did that work, folks?
Yeah,
Thank you. But I want to discuss AB 5250, and I think the gentleman that preceded me did a pretty exceptional job. I don't think it's necessary for me to run through pretty much the same information. I think it's essentially, tonight, you might want to be deciding whether you want to give preferential treatment to one owner under the residential code. And tonight, that's essentially all you need to do. You need to decide that if that's what you intend to do, then I think you probably should kick the ball down the field and pick it up on March 15th. If you don't intend to give preferential treatment to one party, I think you should just reject outright the amendment as presented. The applicants can pick it up again next year. I expect that the city has so much work to do right now. This is hardly the time to be addressing this issue. And rather, I don't think it's necessary to continue to say the same thing. I believe all of you understand this, and I hope you make the right decision this evening. Thank you.
thank you. City Clerk, is there any other person who has signed up?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's some list.
Okay, thank you. There being no further appearances, we now move to the consent calendar. Consent calendar contains the approval of the accounts payable report, for the periods ending August 28 and September 4, the approval of the certification of payroll dated September 11, 2020, the approval of the minutes of the September 1, 2020 regular video meeting, AB 5751, which is WRIA 8, interlocal agreement amendment. Does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent calendar? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I believe I heard Councilmember Enral making the motion and seconded by Councilmember Reynolds. City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call?
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker,
Aye.
Councilmember Enral,
Aye.
Councilmember Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum,
Aye.
and Mayor Wong.
Aye. Thank you. The consent calendar has been approved. We now move to the first item of regular business, which is Agenda Bill 5752, a public hearing on emergency ordinance number 20C-17 to temporarily allow private parking and right-of-way use by businesses to meet Safe Start guidelines. Again, this is a public hearing for the purpose of receiving comments on the emergency ordinance number 20C-17. Individuals wishing to make a public comment on this agenda item may do so by telephone or by using the Zoom teleconferencing application, provided, however, they register their desire to speak and make a public comment with the city clerk by 4 p.m. today. Our city clerk will call you by name or telephone number when it is your turn to speak. The public hearing is now open as of 6:16 p.m. Those wishing to provide public testimony, please speak out your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. 15-second I will give you a 15-second warning when your time is about to expire. City Clerk, has anybody signed up for public comment regarding this emergency ordinance?
No, Mr. Mayor, we don't have anyone signed up for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. There being no testimony in this public portion of the hearing, it is now closed as of 6:16 p.m. And next we welcome the EOC Small Business Liaison, Sarah Bolvis. Sarah, are you with us here?
I am. How are you?
Good.
Okay, well, that was a quick public hearing. I just wanted to give you all a couple updates related to the ordinance, businesses that have been able to take advantage of it, as well as a few other updates related to some small business support. So let me just share my screen very quickly. All right. Okay. So we have received one ROW permit that was applied for right after we passed this ordinance back in August and was issued. And you can see a lovely picture of a community member enjoying the new outdoor seating space at Barrel's Wine Bar, enjoying it when we had better weather conditions, unfortunately. Hopefully we can get back to that again soon. We've also had several restaurants reach out about the private parking conversion option, including the Haps restaurant in Town Center. So we continue to field those inquiries and help businesses figure out how to work with their landlords to potentially add additional outdoor space and private parking. And I'm also actively reaching out to all the eating and drinking establishments on the island, again, about these outdoor seating opportunities. I know that, with the smoky conditions, outdoor seating is likely one of the last things on people's minds, but hopefully we can get into some better weather as well as continue to help them figure out how they might expand when the weather turns rainy again this year. Additionally, we've scheduled some additional trash pickups in Town Center. We had some businesses reach out a few weeks ago with concern related to increased trash from takeout and other garbage items. So we've been working with the Public Works Department to keep Town Center clean in particular. And we'll continue to evaluate if that's something that we need to offer ongoing throughout the rest of the year. Additionally, I just wanted to update you all on some other support activities that we've been working on. Last week, we sent out another email to all island businesses. It focused on the business survey results that we reported on a couple of weeks ago, and continue to work with council members Reynolds and Jacobson, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, to really dig into those survey results and provide more support opportunities to local businesses. We also have a free consulting service available for small businesses now. The public space and public art consultant, George Lee, has offered free spatial design consultation services. Information about this was also included in the business email last week. And this is a free service that George is able to offer Mercer Island businesses through a grant he received on behalf of Mercer Island through For Culture. So encouraging businesses to connect with him to think about their space design and how they might be able to facilitate more safe social distancing, either indoors or outdoors at their business. Additionally, we have a new marketing campaign to support local businesses launching later this month. You might recall this is the second half of the Port of Seattle grant project scope, working with a few local consultants, L+B Design, as well as Suzanne Czar, to put that together in consultation with the Chamber of Commerce and others here in the community. So stay tuned for more details about MI Next launching later this month. And then finally, we received some more information about a new small business emergency grant program that's being provided through CARES funding. Earlier this year during the pandemic, we helped facilitate for Mercer Island businesses the Working Washington Small Business Emergency Grant Program. That was a program funded through the Department of Commerce at the state level, and they received some additional funding, which they are distributing to all counties across the state. And so we're working with the Seattle Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce to distribute that funding to businesses through grant application. So my understanding of this program is that it will be a little bit more flexible and easier to navigate than the Working Washington program. The applications are open now, and they'll be open for a couple of weeks, and King County has about a little over $500,000 to distribute to small businesses. So I will be sending out information about that program to our small businesses on the island and be able to field any questions for them related to the application process. So that's all I have tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions about the outdoor seating progress or anything else we've been working on, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. I have a question. It's not related to, I'm glad that people are taking advantage of the outdoor seating. I'm curious, again, this is a little bit off topic, but again, related to the businesses. Are you in discussions with them regarding what to do during the fall and winter, in particular the winter? I know that other cities are taking a look at what can possibly be done to help maintain small businesses during, when it's raining and cold. So have you started those discussions at all?
We have. I've primarily been working with the Chamber of Commerce and other regional partners to get a better idea about what other communities have been trying out. In terms of restaurants and other eating and drinking establishments, they're trying to focus on pushing sort of takeout campaigns still, but also how you open up indoor dining per the phased guidelines that we're under currently. So working with the chamber to kind of navigate all of that, as well as reach out to all of our local businesses and figure out what they need. I also know, from the survey results, we have a pretty good idea of some additional ways that would be very helpful to support the local business community through the end of the year. And, including more resources related to PPE, as well as opportunities for funding to get them through the next several months. So definitely turned our attention that way, as well as, really kind of pushing messaging out related to masking up and keeping their locations safe to kind of encourage more in-person activity, especially at our retail locations.
Thank you. The one warning I got from the mayor of Kirkland was that if we're talking about using tents and heat lamps, outdoor heat lamps, you need to start ordering them now because there's a shortage. And so that was the kind of the warning that I received. So anyway, that's passing that warning on to you, but I'm sure you've heard that as well.
Thank you.
I have one last question because I'm going to take since I don't see anybody else's hand up right now. I have heard from some businesses. I'm just curious about if you've heard anything regarding land. This is for commercial tenants, and so whether or not you're hearing any kind of pushback, any concerns raised by these tenants as far as landlords not accommodating or engaged in, potential changes to their rent amount and term of lease. Have you heard anything like that? Because I think there's growing pressure now on some of these commercial tenants.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, at the beginning of the pandemic, that was one of the main concerns that we heard from especially our brick and mortar businesses in town center. And, we haven't heard direct appeals to the city recently, although I know with some of the eviction moratoriums potentially changing or expiring, we may hear more of that. I know that, part of the issue is that landlords are feeling the pain as well, commercial property owners as well. So our goal is to work with both the tenants and the property managers or owners to really find common solutions that will be helpful. So that's one thing as well that we're moving more towards, pushing out, kind of appeals, especially to a lot of the businesses that we heard from in the beginning who are having issues, potentially doing some more outreach to our local property owners and landlords, as well as, one of the survey results from the business survey that we presented a couple of weeks ago really centered on, a need for help with either commercial rental relief or kind of a step in from the city to help out with something. So still evaluating what our options are to be able to assist that way. I'm hopeful that we can provide some more support, maybe more than what we were able to provide earlier in the pandemic. So hopefully we'll have more information kind of as we go along. But we have identified that as an ongoing major issue that we need to help address.
Great, thank you. I'm glad it's on the radar. Bernice.
Sarah, thanks for your work on this. I feel like we're on a little bit at the backside of the issue here, and I know that you've got quite a bit of horsepower. You're well aware that I worked with Kroger and with Rite Aid on trying to set up senior shopping hours and some of the at-risk populations. One of the things that I know is happening right now is the flu shot is getting ramped up. I was in Rite Aid just yesterday getting my flu shot, and the whole process took about 3 or 4 minutes, but it did require me to go in, stand in a store that was near the pharmacy or store area, and then go into the intake area and get an injection. I understand there is some request to do some sort of drive-through type flu shot activity. Is that something you're working on? And is there anything we as accountants council will need to look at to facilitate that type of thing that keep people in the cars for a quick shot?
Yep. So we have, and actually you passed this request on to us from QFC, who are coordinating drive-through vaccination sites throughout kind of the region, and they reached out for a Mercer Island location. So we are working with QFC to do a site visit at the community center, knowing that it's a big empty parking lot that we may be able to utilize right now. They have a great system and process for keeping people in their cars and working with their pharmacists to vaccinate quickly. Vaccines would be covered by insurance the same way if you go to your doctor or you go into a Rite Aid or a Walgreens to get it. So really now we're just kind of working out the dates. Hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have something scheduled that we'll be able to promote amongst the community. But yes, that's definitely something that we are working with our local pharmacy and grocery providers to provide.
Okay, and just to clear that statement out, I doubt you meant QFC, probably talking about Rite Aid and Walgreens, right? Because QFC is not Kroger's not planning on flu shots, are they?
They are actually. So their pharmacies that they have, our QFCs on the island don't have pharmacies, but they are setting up vaccination sites. So I also reached out to Rite Aid and Walgreens to kind of offer the same service, knowing that we had an inquiry from another business on the island and haven't heard anything back from them so far, but I definitely will follow up with that. But yeah,
okay.
So definitely QFC. Yep.
I'll do the same on Rite Aid. Thank you.
Thanks.
That'd be a great idea. Thank you. And then Councilmember Jacobson.
Yes, sir. I wanted to check to see what what reception the tables at the Boyd building have gotten and whether they're being utilized.
I have heard that they have been utilized greatly over the past couple of months. And I think that might have been part of the connection to the increase in trash around town center, knowing that there were more people out using the outdoor seating. So that's been a great service that has been provided to the community, not only to allow more seating for the restaurants that are at the Boyd building, but there's also some other professional services, including Hair Excel. And I know, there have been people who are waiting for their haircut who have used the picnic tables as well. So it's definitely been a huge success.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Sarah, just back on the flu shot. I also got my flu shot, but I think when you talk to Kroger's and whoever, obviously you just need to make sure that they have the enhanced flu shot for seniors, myself. I mean, so that in high demand and short supply. So,
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sarah? There is no action item for us. We were just to receive the report. I don't see any other hands, Sarah. So thank you so much for your report.
All right. Thank you for having me and have a great night.
Thank you. The second item on regular business is Agenda Bill 5748, Permit Expiration Extension, Ordinance Number 20C-21. This is the first reading and possible adoption. Welcome, Deputy Community Planning and Development Director, Allison Van Gorp. Sorry, that's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful. Feel free to. All right, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Just give me a moment to share my screen and pull up PowerPoint here. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
All right, great. This is fairly brief, so I'll just go through the slides and then we can hear any questions or comments from the council. So this is a code amendment that has arisen from the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on construction projects. Between the stay-home order this spring and the subsequent phase 2 job site requirements that have been imposed by the governor, there have been significant impacts on construction this spring and going into the summer. In the spring, many construction sites were shut down for 1 to 2 months, and they've also experienced delays that have come either directly from the virus or indirectly as both contractors, consultants, engineers, et cetera, architects have shifted to online and remote work. And we know that this has been a big impact for construction projects. We've heard from many of our permit applicants, contractors, builders throughout the last 6 months about the delays they've been experiencing and frustration they've had around that. We've been doing our best in CPD to work with them to continue, permitting and inspection services the best we can. But the fact remains that there were some significant delays in the spring, and that is having an impact currently, and we suspect it will continue to be an impact going into the next several months and maybe even years. So projects that experience these delays are now coming up on their permit expiration deadlines, and they need a little more time to be able to complete the work, just given the delays that they experienced. So staff are proposing ordinance 20C-21. It would authorize the building official to give a 6-month permit extension during or after a declared emergency. So this would be something that would remain on the books after the current emergency and would be a tool that could be available, if the need arises in the future and we have another major emergency like this. In the immediate term, it would give us the ability to grant an extension to permit applicants that are currently being affected by delays related to COVID. The extensions could be granted for any projects that's been impacted by an emergency, and the extensions would be made upon request by the applicant, and there would be no additional permit fee. The extensions could be available so normally permits have a lifespan of 2 years, and our code currently allows permits to be renewed for an additional year with a fee. So this extension that has no fee could be available either prior to or after that renewal. So just depending on where the project is in that lifespan, it would be available either way. And it would increase the max amount of time that a permit can be active from 3 years to 3.5 years. We did have one minor revision suggested by Mayor Wong. I just wanted to put this up here. Staff supports the edit and just wanted to make everyone aware of it. It's basically just changing the words and then to the, just a grammatical thing. So the recommended action tonight is to waive the second reading. The reason for this is that there are permit applicants who are close to their expiration dates and could benefit from this immediately if we're able to take action now. And then the second piece of the recommendation is to adopt ordinance 20C-21 to allow the building official to extend permits for an additional 6 months. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. I'm just going to turn off the screen share, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Neese, your hand is up.
No, that's a hanging chat. I'll turn it off.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Anderall.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. Are there any potential negative impacts to this? I don't see any, but I think we should be at least ask the question.
Yeah, I don't think there's any significant negative impacts. The reason we have limits on the length of permits is that in the past, there have been concerns around the impacts of long-running construction projects in neighborhoods. So for example, if a project is going on for 3 years and there's road closures or noise or dust or other impacts in the neighborhood, that can be quite an impact for those homes that are near the construction site. So we, do have a cap on how long it can go for those reasons. But I don't know that an additional 6 months in, the experience we're having now with the pandemic and a major emergency would be much of a burden.
Okay, thank you.
Allison, do you have any idea how many applicants there may be out, how many homeowners this might affect or benefit, I guess is a better word?
I don't have an exact number for you. We are aware of several that could be affected by or helped by this in the very near term that are nearing the expiration of their permit. I suspect that there could be many projects that would want to take advantage of this over the course of this year and maybe next year, because they continue to experience project delays, and as they reach the end of their 2-year duration of their permit, they may want to take advantage of this extension.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Neese.
I'm just going to make a motion. So I move to suspend the council rules of procedure 6.3 and 10.1 requiring second reading of an ordinance, and to adopt ordinance number 20C-21, allowing the building official to extend permits for an additional 6 months. And
We're going to take those in 2 separate motions. So Salim, if you want to go ahead and just make a motion to suspend the second reading.
so moved.
Second.
So it's been moved by Councilmember Neese and seconded by Councilmember Jacobson to to suspend the council rules of procedure 6.3 and 10.1, requiring a second reading. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Wong, I can call the roll for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Wong,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker. Aye. Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Councilmember Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderl,
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Aye.
The motion passes. Councilmember Neese, do you want to make the follow-up motion?
Yeah, happy to. Just a quick question. Does it need to reflect the changes that we saw on the screen? So should I just reference as edited?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay, so I move to adopt ordinance number 20C-21, allowing the building official to extend permits for an additional 6 months as edited.
Second.
And moved by Councilmember Neese and seconded by Councilmember Jacobson to adopt ordinance number 20C-21 as presented. Chief of Administration, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderl,
Aye.
Councilmember Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker,
Aye.
Mayor Wong.
Aye. Thank you. So I just see a nod of heads or anything. Do you want to take a break or should we go ahead and proceed? I'm seeing no motion to take a break, so we'll move on to the third item of regular business, which is Agenda Bill 5750, the G. Richard Hill Code Amendment, Initial Review and Direction. And to lead that discussion is, again, Deputy Community Planning and Development Director, Allison Van Gorp, and City Attorney, Theo Park.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Bear with me for a second. Moment. Presentation's missing. I'm sure it's here somewhere. Just close out that first one. Okay. All right, thanks for your patience. Okay, this is a very, very brief presentation. So back in February, we received this application for an amendment to the development regulations from G. Richard Hill. Staff understands that it was submitted on behalf of the French American School and the Strum Jewish Community Center. This was originally scheduled to come to the council in March, but based on the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was postponed, and then the delays continued through the summer as the council focused on more pressing matters. And so now we're bringing this back, and we need to make a decision about how to process this code amendment. The code amendment itself would allow exceptions to lot coverage, height, and gross floor area requirements for regulated improvements. Regulated improvements include uses like schools, non-commercial recreational areas, and religious buildings. We have 3 options available in terms of the actions council can take. Option A is to decline further review of the application. The fee paid by the applicant would be refunded and the matter would be concluded. Option B is to proceed with review of the application. The council would remand it to the Planning Commission for review this fall, and then they would bring back a recommendation and the council would take action. The third option, C, is to postpone initial action on the application and set a date next year for review and possible initial action by the council. The applicant, Mr. Hill, sent an email supporting the option C to postpone review of the application, and staff support this recommendation. That's all I have at this point. Staff had not had capacity to do any analysis of this code amendment at this time. So we really like direction from the council at this point about how to proceed.
Thank you. If you want to remove your screen, that'd be great. Councilmember Neese, you had your hand up first. So you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I was just curious if staff could elaborate on why they support that particular option.
Sure. I'd be happy to take that question, Allison. Under normal circumstances, when a matter like this is presented to the council for initial review and consideration, I would have asked the staff to do at least a preliminary technical analysis of the code amendment. We have not had the capacity to do that work. And given those circumstances, I am recommending postponing. Should you find that helpful in making your decision on the disposition of this code amendment this evening. So frankly, it's just a reflection of our own capacity and our inability to do even a preliminary analysis of this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Yeah, I have two quick questions and then a comment. The first one is for Allison. During appearances, Mr. Hall made a comment that there are no staff on board anymore that had anything to do with this prior work. Is that statement correct? My recollection is you were involved at least so.
Myself and Robin Probsting, our senior planner, have both been on staff for several years and have been around during the many different discussions related to the JCC site. That said, we haven't been as directly involved with this project as a couple of staff that are no longer with the city.
Okay, thanks. That's consistent with my understanding.
Councilmember Reynolds, I'll just chime in if, and I don't recall exactly the nature of the public comment, but if it was specific to the community facility zone, I would say that that statement is accurate. The staff that were leading the community facility zone planning work are no longer with the city.
Okay. Second question for city attorney, I guess assume Bio's there. If we voted to remand this to the planning commission, do they have to make just a yes/no vote on the proposed amendment, or could they come back and say, we like the basic idea, but we want to change X, Y, and Z about it, and come back with a different recommendation for the council?
The recommendation would come from the planning commission. That would come from the planning commission. Could be either of the three. Could be yes, just simply yes, recommend it back to the city council as is, or say no, we don't recommend anything. We do not recommend this for approval, or have a hybrid scenario where they would recommend. They wouldn't recommend as presented or applied, but would instead recommend a third option that is available to the planning commission.
Thank you. Now my general comment, by virtue of my time on the planning commission, I've probably heard more people talking about this for more hours than anyone here, for better or worse. I'm in support of option 3 here of sending it back to the planning commission sometime in 2021, and I want to just offer my comment on why. Basically, it comes down to an inherent belief that things can be better. And it's interesting to me how people can look at the same evidence and come to different conclusions. But I heard a lot of people during the public comment time and during appearances when we were looking at the CFC who made a lot of testimony about how challenging it was to live in that neighborhood. Challenges with traffic, challenges with traffic safety, challenges with noise, challenges with light, challenges with perceived visual blight. It's a bad situation there, and I get that. I think an option that we might be adopting to just say no, don't do anything, is condemning the city to living with a bad situation. And I don't think that's a reasonable alternative unless we've been fully investigated other alternatives. If their amendment proposed is not a perfect one, and there are some changes I would suggest to it, but I continue to believe that an appropriate amendment, if made, could result in a redevelopment of those facilities that would both make them more useful to the users of those facilities and less impactful on the neighborhood than the current situation. And that's going to support postponing this, but considering it as opposed to just rejecting it.
Okay, and there'll be opportunities for council members to provide comments.
Mayor
And-
Wong, can I just jump in real
Yes.
quick? Councilmember Reynolds, you said something, and I just wanted to make sure to clarify. Postponing this does not automatically defer it to the Planning Commission. It basically brings it back to the City Council to have this discussion at a date in 2021.
Okay, thank you. That's an important distinction, and I'm ready to have that discussion in 2021, and probably would support sending it to the Planning Commission at that time.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, for letting me cut in there.
No, that's fine. Again, council members, you'll have an opportunity to state your opinion on with respect to these options and in your, as we discuss the motions themselves. This time we simply want to focus on questions. And so
I apologize. I jumped the gun.
No, that's fine. Now we have Councilmember Jacobson.
I have a multi-part question, and that is, and I'm not sure who wants to answer it, but the CFC process went on for some period of time prior to its enactment by the City Council in 2018 or 19, I don't recall which. And my first part of my question is, what was the cost in terms of staff time to get it passed by the City Council? Number two is, what was the cost of the litigation that took place afterwards? Number three is, if in fact this is considered further, do we plan on referring it to outside counsel, or will it be handled in-house when the litigation starts, which it will? That's an absolute certainty. And so those are my preliminary questions.
Sure. Councilmember Jacobson, I'm happy to field a couple questions here. I do not have a cost estimate for the work that we did previously. It would take me some time to calculate that if the majority of the council would like me to pursue that. I can tell you, perhaps anecdotally, the CFC was a fairly robust endeavor and required a good amount of CPD staff time. And I came in about mid-process there as the interim city manager, and I can tell you it took a good portion of my time as well. If more specifics are needed on that, then let's talk about whether or not that's a good use of staff time right now. As for litigation discussion, I really believe that's probably more appropriately handled in an executive session.
Okay, well, then, do I correctly understand that CFC process was enormously consumptive of staff time? Yours
Yes,
included.
I would say that is a fair and accurate statement without having a specific number to share. And I might actually, Councilmember Reynolds, if you've had your coffee today, could probably ballpark how many planning commission meetings there were on that. I don't know.
And have not had enough coffee to know, but certainly on the order of a dozen probably, if you included the subcommittee meetings.
So Councilmember Jacobson, there aren't many issues. Well, that's probably not fair. That's a significant number of planning commission meetings on a single topic.
I understand that.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderall.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm trying to understand why staff supports the recommendation to kick the can down the road as opposed to reject. Because I will offer my views on what that is when it's time for comments, not during questions. But I mean, give me 2 pros and 2 cons for the, recommendations A and C.
Sure. I won't meet the 2 pros and cons test But in fairness, this is what I would tell you. If I were to make a recommendation for option A, which is to decline right now, I would have come prepared with a technical analysis, at least in a preliminary fashion, for you to back up my recommendation. I'm being honest with you when I say we have put no staff time into analyzing this code amendment, and so I'm not prepared to support option A. I think like Councilmember Reynolds, I too have concerns about the code amendment, but I'm not in a position this evening, and I do apologize that we just haven't had the capacity to work on this, to make that recommendation. In talking with representatives from the JCC recently, we have all been impacted by the pandemic. And so to make a recommendation from the staff beyond simply postponing, giving us some time to actually do a technical analysis, I would hope in that window of time to also have a planning director here to assist me. And I frankly don't have that. So that is the candid position that I find myself in at this time. So the question that was asked, I think it was actually Councilmember Jacobson, why bring this back now? Well, in fairness, the application was applied for in February and scheduled to come to you in March. We, for a number of reasons, first of all, just the initial pandemic, and then governor's restrictions on the content of our meeting, we've had to delay. So in fairness to the applicant, I wanted to at least touch in with you this evening, acknowledge this application, and frankly have this conversation.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Weicker.
Yeah, I was curious, Mr. Mayor, do we have a couple council members who are interested in kind of working on this in the interim to kind of study it in between and see where we might land on this in 2021? I thought there might be a couple of people who are interested in doing some work from the council. Is that not accurate?
Well, I can't speak for them, but I have had discussions with Councilmember Jacobson and Councilmember Rosenbaum, who have expressed desire to help in the discussion, of the various stakeholders if that opportunity arises. So yes, I've had that discussion and they've shared their willingness to do so. But again, there's nothing formal. There's, it really depends on what the people want to do, what the stakeholders want to do. So it's very preliminary, Deputy Mayor. But
okay.
There is an express willingness. Yes.
In my mind, it seems like there's no harm in delaying this until 2021. So I would ask, is there any reason not to do option C?
Well, that, I guess, will be a discussion we have if a motion is made for option C or for another option. So
right.
Another question at this time. Otherwise, Councilmember Rosenbaum has his hand up.
Just to respond to Deputy Mayor, I am interested in working on this. I know previously Councilmember Jacobson has expressed some interest in this as well. I'm still open to it, Councilmember Jacobson, if you are. I think we could, really bring some people together. I think that's a good path forward here. Obviously, there's a lot of people involved in this, and I think we'd be good partners on this effort.
And if this helps, I will just tell you, I have spoken to Amy Lavin, the executive director at the JCC, a couple times, including as recently as today. And I know that the JCC French American School are still looking at, options and alternatives. And frankly, I very much appreciate Councilmember Jacobson. He's been steadfast in his commitment to step in and help. And I frankly welcome the support from the council. So thank you, Jake. You've been pushing me on this for a while, so I'm glad we're able to talk about it tonight.
Also, thanks to Councilmember Rosenbaum also for his.
Yeah, thank you as well, Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Councilmember Anise.
I have a question, but before that, I'll throw my hat in as the third musketeer on the working group to try and wrestle this ground. If you will have the third musketeer, this is an area that was my old paper route when I was a kid, so I'm intimately familiar with the steepness of 40th and this area around the JCC. But if you want one, I'm available. My question was actually, yeah. My question was around the legal question. Kind of understanding that you want to save that for executive session. If there was legal action that was brought upon the city by accepting the code amendment application and moving forward. Is the applicant responsible for the cost of defending the city, or is the city responsible for the cost of defending the city and pursuing the application?
The city would be responsible for the cost. It'd be a city decision. Once the council, if the council decides to approve a code amendment, that becomes a city decision, and it would be incumbent on the city to defend its decision.
Okay, so I would just, well, I'll save it for comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Jacobson.
This is a question back to the city manager. And I would preface that comment by saying one of the things I very much appreciate about our city manager is the thoroughness with which she does her business and considers issues and prepares them to be brought before us in some kind of form that's susceptible to a meaningful, reasoned decision. And I appreciate the idea that her desire to have a technical analysis done of Mr. Hill's proposed amendment. I'm assuming that would, or let me ask a question, not make an assumption here, and that is, would the CPD be the one that would do that technical analysis? And how consumptive of its time, given its current resources, would that be?
Yeah. So great question, Councilmember Jacobson. I probably could have put a little more meat on the bone when I was talking about this a moment ago. Really what I would like to have done, it would probably be a combination of both CPD staff and legal counsel, our legal counsel, or considering the workload of the city attorney right now, we may use one of our outside firms to join in. The question I really wanted to be able to answer under what I would call a preliminary technical review is something that Councilmember Anderl asked me just a moment ago, pros and cons, right? What are the strengths of this code amendment? What are the potential weaknesses? So that you could make an informed decision before you remand this to the Planning Commission. The staff wouldn't do a comprehensive analysis because the way the code is written and the intent of the application is that it then moves on to the Planning Commission for further study. But even that preliminary analysis, and you had asked about how much time it would take, probably not substantial, something that I could ask a new planning director to take on when they arrive and get up to speed, which I hope to be making an announcement about that very soon. But I would also want to have a legal review done, and we've been at capacity, as you well know, with legal tasks lately as well.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? That was Jake. That was Councilmember Jacobson. That was a question I sort of wanted to ask as well. So, the question I really wanted to ask early on was, what's the difference between now and 6 months from now? And so, what I'm hearing you say, city manager, is that the city council should have more information, should have some sort of what you're calling a preliminary technical review of the code amendment that's being proposed, so that we can have a more informed decision.
Certainly. And that, the question was asked earlier, why'd you put option C on the table and not A or B? I'm not prepared to defend a recommendation for A, and frankly, option B, which is remand it now, would be very challenging given our current workload circumstances. So a little more time was really the genesis of the staff recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions by council members? Otherwise, I certainly would like to entertain. We have three alternate recommendations from the council, for the council. Option A, to decline, option B, to remand, and option C, to postpone. So is there any motion by a council member to approve one of these options?
I move we adopt A.
For option A.
Okay.
Second.
That's fine, thank you. So we have a motion to adopt option A made by Councilmember Jacobson and seconded by Councilmember Androl. Discussion. So Councilmember Jacobson, since you made the motion, you want to speak to it?
Yes, I do. I believe that this is the thing that will be most likely to produce success in the long run with the problems that exist in that neighborhood, a number of which my colleague, Councilman Reynolds, identified traffic and a number of other kinds of things. I'm also willing, and I'm a very firm believer that together with my colleague, Councilman Rosenbaum, and any others that joined, although more make it somewhat more difficult, that having some, and this is no disrespect to either JCC or the residents over there, but have some adults in the room would be very helpful about knocking some of the rough edges off of this, and this meaning the problems in that area, and the considerable dislike and distrust that's built up over a number of years, and thereby coming to some sort of an accommodation which would suit both the JCC's needs, the needs of the city in terms of traffic and safety and those kinds of things, and the needs of the neighborhood in terms of the quiet enjoyment of their residences. So that's why I think this is the best step down that path. And I'm perfectly willing to spend whatever time it takes, wherever, whenever. And I don't have any presuppositions about anything other than there are a bunch of problems and they need to be unpacked and solved.
Thank you. Councilmember Androl.
Thank you. Yeah, Jake said it well, but I agree. I mean, I know that staff has not had a chance to analyze this amendment, but we have had the benefit of citizen analysis, very knowledgeable, very experienced land use citizen analysis of this. I'm convinced that the amendment as it sits right now is flawed. I'm also convinced that if we kick the can down the road for 6 months, that sends the wrong message. It says, well, everything's fine. We just need time to look at this. I don't think everything is fine. And I think if we take this amendment off the table, kind of set a clear slate, then both sides, both the residents and the J, have more of an incentive and more of an opportunity to join together to try to work collaboratively. I've been told by the residents that they are willing to continue to talk to the J. But if this amendment is still pending, it doesn't incent anybody to do anything. All we do is tread water for 6 months. I think we will make no progress and we'll bring the same problems back to the council in March. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to set expectations like that for the J. I don't think it's fair to have the residents in the neighborhood in a continued state of suspended animation. I think there's way more benefit to just take this off the table, tell everybody to go back, work on it. There are problems, work together, bring us something better, bring us an amendment that is not going to fall to a very expensive and time-consuming and painful legal challenge. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Councilmember Reynolds. You're on mute. Great.
Yep. Sorry, I was just taking a minute to get there. I won't repeat my earlier comments. I just want to note a couple of things. You know, Councilmember Androl, I agree with you. The amendment is flawed. There are things in it that I think need to change, although I think the core ideas of it are probably reasonably solid. But agreeing to bring this before the council to decide whether we should refer it to the Planning Commission for exploration is not saying we support the amendment. What it is doing is saying that in 2021, when we catch our breath a little bit, we're willing to look at this situation and try to address it. And I think by rejecting the amendment, the message we are sending is, nope, we don't want to do anything. And we're just going to leave the bad situation the way it is. I commend Councilmember Jacobson for his willingness and Councilmember Rosenbaum for their willingness to continue to work that issue. And I think that's great, and I think that's fully appropriate. What I worry about is I'm drawing the counter conclusion that Councilmember Jacobson and Androl were drawing, that I think if we vote to reject this, we're basically sending a message of we're not going to do anything. And I think if we vote to say, let's talk about it in 2021, we're saying, yeah, we will think about doing something. So let's use that time between now and 2021 to work on the issue. And I think that's wholly appropriate to send that message.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Thank you. I think this is actually a situation where deadlines spur action. And I think that, we received information about the JCC and their CUP compliance. I think there's work on their end to do. I think there's work on the city's end to do. I also think that if we get word from Jesse that there's not time to do the limited analysis they want to do before March, I think that's something we take into consideration, maybe push us back a little bit more. But I think that this is a situation where setting a deadline is going to be good to fix what has been a longstanding issue in the area.
Thank you. Councilmember Neese.
So I feel a little bit like this is Groundhog's Day and that we've seen this movie before. We got, Craig mentioned that he had heard more hearing hours on this, but I may have heard as many public hours and emails of griping of the development inequities that the residents surrounding the project feel are being kind of cast upon them by a commercial entity having a significant voice at the city. The problem with this is that these amendments will be the last amendments that kind of subvert the docketing procedure that the Growth Management Act prescribes. These are the tail of what is left over before that necessary code was in place to have a docket that didn't exist when it was required by state law. The other problem with these is that they're called the Rich Hill Code Amendments, and that's a hangover that we politically will never be clear of. This is going to be considered by the residents, I guarantee this, as another brute force approach to development in a residential zone that feels very commercial. And politically, I would hope that my peers would understand that if you want to be successful, and if you want to solve the citizens' problems, that you don't look towards these code amendments, which I guarantee you will fail, as the solution. The solution is to reset the playing field, have the residents and the J work together with hopefully a small group of the council that can facilitate the conversations to come forward with a plan that is organic. This is not organic. This is a brute force approach to putting in place what feels like a spot zone. I won't say it is a spot zone, but feels like a spot zone that will ultimately fail. So we're going to defer the decision, which will really defer the potential to solve a problem. And you'll do that in a year that we'll have a city council election where your mayor will be up for election, I'll be up for election, and Lisa Anderell is always up for election, so she'll be up for election. I just think it's a folly. The residents and the J would benefit by us rejecting this and leveling the playing field and doing this the right way, which is doing it together. And like I said, I'm willing to be one of the third musketeers. I'm confident that if we work together with the neighbors, the residents, which is the main, I would say, impetus for the legal actions against the city, that we can resolve this. But they do have a unique perspective. And as Councilmember Rosenbaum mentioned, there's compliance issues with the cops. There's a historical record that needs to be recreated within the city of what was agreed to over the years, what happened, what did the J do, what did they not do, what commitments did they make, and how do we bring them into compliance? And I just think that if we can do those things, we can solve this problem, and we can probably have an agreement that everybody would look at favorably next year, rather than just kick the can until next year.
Councilmember Anderell.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I think Salim speaks wisely and well, and everything he said, I'm 100% agreement with. I don't think a deadline of March spurs any action right now. I think it spurs, treading water.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Weicker.
I'll just offer a counter position, and that is that these applicants started down this road several years ago at the city's request, and we're currently in a pandemic with a department that's currently in transition and no leadership. And I think taking some time to honor where we've been in trying to create a zone that reflects the commercial activity happening in the residential neighborhood has been a long-term progress with lots of lawyers and planners and input all around from applicants and neighborhood groups. I think it's not great. I think it can be better. I think we need to take the time to figure out where we've been and where we can improve the work that we've already done in trying to improve not just the neighborhood, but all of the traffic flow, the lighting, the noise, all of the issues that I think the neighbors and the applicants want to work on together. I'm in complete support and agreement with delaying this 6 months to get our planning department back in shape, giving us a chance to get through the budget cycle and recover from this pandemic, and kind of get back to work with this subgroup of the council. It sounds like we're talking about to sort of figure out what the next steps are. Maybe we'll reject it down the road. Maybe we'll have better development regulations. I don't know, but let's take the time to build on the work we've already done and try to get it right. If not, we can reject it later.
Councilmember Neese.
So I'm going to be the voice of political reason. Deputy Mayor Weicker, you didn't have a great relationship with Dan Grouse, and Dan Grouse was famous for doing what you just did, which is because we have, and because we've spent so much time, and because there's been a lot of effort, we must continue. And I'm telling you that that is the wrong approach here politically and to having a successful outcome for the citizens and for the J. You will have the worst outcome by taking that political thought process and applying it to where we stand today. The best outcome is to try and solve the problem, and continuing down this road this way is not going to solve the problem. I'm confident of that.
All due respect, I disagree with you and look forward to having this conversation down the road.
Okay, I'm the only person that hasn't weighed in. Deputy Mayor Weicker, do you have your hand still up? Do you have another comment? Okay. So, I mean, this is obviously a difficult, obviously, I think most of us are probably looking at option A or option C. So this is an incredibly difficult decision. I think for me, I'm going to speak against the motion, in part because I would like to have the staff have an opportunity to provide at least their analysis in a preliminary technical review. And that is going to require some time, hopefully after we hire a CPD director. But I think it's quite clear by the comments made by all the council members, even those who seem to support option C, is that everybody seems to recognize this particular amendment proffered by G. Richard Hill is flawed. And so there needs to be work. Again, it assumes that the city council, perhaps 6 months from now, is going to remand it to the planning commission. There's no guarantee of that at all. And so I think that the J would be wise not to think that is the case. And I think they probably think, they know that even if this thing gets pushed into March 2021, there is no guarantee that their amendment is going to move to the planning commission in the current state that it is in, which then leads me to hope that the discussions that we want to facilitate, again, through the council members, Jacobson and Rosenbaum and others, that the neighbors and the J and the French American School would take this opportunity to work with each other. Because there's a lot of work, as Councilmember Neese has pointed out and others have pointed out. There's a lot of there's a lot of distrust, a lot of bad baggage that exists, but hopefully within the next 6 months or so, some of that can be cleared up. But again, even if this thing gets pushed off to March 2021, there is no guarantee that this amendment is going to go any further, but it does provide time for the staff to take a look at it, provide the council a more reasoned analysis so that we can actually make an informed decision. So again, I'm going to vote against the motion, and I'm asking the city clerk to go ahead and take roll call on the motion, which was to approve option A.
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Nay.
Councilmember Neese,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker,
Nay.
Councilmember Anderl,
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum,
No.
and Mayor Wong.
A,
I'm sorry, nay or a, or nay or aye?
I'm sorry, nay, no.
Thank you.
So the motion fails. So is there another motion with respect to either option B or option C?
I would move to adopt option C.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reynolds to approve option C, seconded by Councilmember Rosenbaum. Councilmember Reynolds, do you want to speak to the motion?
I think I've already said what I need to say.
Okay. Do we have any other comments, questions regarding this motion? Councilmember Jacobson.
You're on mute, Jay.
You're on mute. You're on mute right now.
If we adopt C, I think there's a little incentive for either side to give much ground. And that isn't to say that I'm not willing to bend every effort to try to help get to a finish line that works for as many people as we can. But the concern that I have is that this will just not only just kick the can down the road, but it's going to make it very difficult to get a whole lot of progress, if any. And that isn't to say that I'm not willing to do everything I can do to make sure that there is progress. But I think it sends the wrong message to both groups, if you want to consider them groups.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Oh, I agree with
Yes.
I agree with Jake. I mean, I've already talked about this, but I think that the incentive you create is to clear the table and start afresh. This is just both parties sit there and tread water and wait and see what happens in March, and that just wastes 6 months.
Mayor Wong, may I
Yes.
provide a comment and perhaps an option here? I recognize that the staff's inability to complete at least a preliminary review has created some of this dynamic and this discussion tonight, and I apologize that we're in this situation. Perhaps what I can offer, and Councilmember Jacobson, thank you for raising the question a moment ago, is if and again, I previewed, we have a planning director coming on board. I will be making an announcement very soon on that. If I can get that person up to speed, we could do that technical review sooner than March. I gave myself a long runway when preparing this agenda bill by just naming 2021. So if it would be helpful to the council, perhaps a friendly amendment would be to modify the motion to bring it back to you no later than March 2021, allowing me to bring it back sooner if we are able to get the technical review done. I'm offering that as a helpful option. If it's not helpful to you, please disregard.
I would accept that friendly amendment.
No, normally the city manager doesn't make a friendly amendment, so.
That's a fair point.
Does any council member want to make that amendment? And if so, I need to make sure that the city clerk has it correctly.
Yes, I'll offer up that amendment, but Jesse, I also want to ask, bringing in a new director and doing the evaluation of that department, is that realistic, given the pandemic and the budget and the holidays and
Sure.
sound transit, litigation, et cetera? Like, what's realistic here, given the plate and the limited resources?
Well, and again, the reason I'm putting this out there is this is a preliminary technical assessment, just on the face. What do I see? I'm speaking as your hypothetical planning director as pros and cons. That, along with a check-in, I will say, quick with legal counsel, let's say 10 hours or less, including pulling together packet material, to at least give you that level of information. So I think it's reasonable to modify the amendment now. Now, this hasn't been a reasonable year, right? We've had a year where every time we turn around, something's hitting us. So as long as you give me flexibility to, let's say, March 2021, I would just commit to you that if there's an opportunity to come back sooner, I would be happy to do that sooner. The motion, as I'm sitting here reading it, was very definitive, like this will happen in 2021, and that wasn't my intent in drafting it that way.
So, Jesse, I know you're not on the council, but if you want to at least read what you were suggesting, and then maybe Deputy Mayor Weicker can either agree with that language.
Sure.
Or make a motion.
So let me just read what I would recommend the modification be. Postpone initial action on the G. Rich Hill Code Amendment application and set a new city council review date and possible initial action no later than March 2021.
So moved, or yes,
So you, okay.
as stated.
You're making that amendment okay.
And as the mover, I need to accept this, I believe, right?
Right,
And I do.
okay, thank you. Any other further discussions on this particular motion as amended? If not, then we need to, do we need to go ahead and vote on the amendment?
It needs to be seconded, doesn't it?
Oh, I'm sorry, well, was it seconded, or?
I'll second it.
Go, Deb.
So, council, there's two ways you can approach this. You can choose to somebody to make a motion and second what City Manager Bond has put out there as an amendment, or the individuals who originally made the motion and the second, and that is Councilmember Reynolds and Councilmember Rosenbaum, can withdraw their emotions and agree to an amended or a new emotion.
I like that approach, but it's up to you.
Councilmember Rosenbaum, you opened it up?
I withdraw my second.
I withdraw my motion and immediately remove what the city manager read.
Thank you. That's a cleaner approach all the way around.
So the motion now is postpone initial action on the G. Rich Hill Code Amendment application and set new city council review date and possible initial action no later than March 2021.
Mm-hmm. And I believe, Deb, we do need did we get a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask
So the minutes will reflect that Councilmember Reynolds made the motion and Councilmember Rosenbaum seconded the motion.
Can I ask a clarification? Can I ask a clarifying question? Is that this review is going to be done no later than February 28, 2021? Okay, that's fine.
Well, March.
I'm asking, that's why the clarification.
I hear some council members chuckling in the background. Could we agree that it means March 31st at the outside?
But then we wouldn't be able to.
No later than March 2021. I was assuming, Mayor Wong, it meant March 31st.
Okay. Deb, city clerk, help me out here. How do you want to do this?
So this is the way let's not like beat up process for the sake of
Right.
here. We have a motion by Councilmember Reynolds. It's been seconded by Councilmember Rosenbaum to postpone the initial action on the G. Rich Hill Code Amendment application and set a new council review date and possible initial action no later than March 2021. We have 2 regular meetings in March. We'll bring it to you in one of those meetings.
Well said, yes.
Okay, I guess there's an understanding on that, I guess. All right, city clerk, you want to call the roll? This is on approval of option C as amended.
Give me just one
Oh,
moment.
I'm sorry, my mistake. It's really not as amended. It's as the motion as presented. Sorry.
Right. So I'm creating a new voting chart here. Councilmember Jacobson.
I have to defer for a moment. I'm having a problem here.
Okay, Councilmember Neese,
Nay.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Councilmember Weicker,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderall,
Nay.
Councilmember Rosenbaum,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Mayor Wong.
Aye,
The vote is 4-3 in favor of the motion.
thank you. Thank you. The fourth item of regular business is Agenda Bill 5749. Well, let me ask, are people okay? Or do we want to take a 5-minute break?
Why don't we take it after we get done and then before our next executive session?
Okay, well, we have one more, we'll have another item as well. So
Why don't we take a break now then?
why don't we just take it's 7:30, why don't we take a 10-minute break? 7:40, be back, okay? Thanks. Yes, she is, okay.
Mr. Mayor, we are live.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are returning from a 10-minute recess. The fourth item of regular business is Agenda Bill 5749, temporary increase in utility tax rates, ordinance number 20C-20, second reading and adoption. And interfund loans authorization, resolution number 1586 for potential litigation costs to enforce the terms of the city's 2017 settlement agreement with Sound Transit. To lead this discussion, we welcome City Manager Jesse Bond.
Yes, and I am actually going to defer to Ali this evening, who has the PowerPoint ready to go.
Good evening, Council. I'm going to share the PowerPoint here with you. Just a couple of slides. You there? Yay. Okay. So this evening, I'm going to walk you through the steps for the utility tax increase. At the last meeting, we talked with you about ordinance number, oops.
Ali, we've got a funny screen share going on.
No, what is happening here? Oh my goodness. Can't even see how to unshare. There we go, okay. Stopping, let's start again. I don't like how PowerPoint works on my computer on Zoom. Let's try this. Council, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, here we go. I am not able to move through the presentation.
You know what, Ali, you want to just go with your presentation verbally? I think we've...
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. So we brought to you the council, we brought to you at the last meeting ordinance 20C-20, which is the temporary increase to the utility tax to finance the cost of litigation to enforce the Sound Transit Settlement Agreement. This will be a rate increase of from 5.3% to 8% for the water, sewer, and stormwater tax rates. It'll be for 36 months from November 1st, 2020 through October 31st, 2023. The new tax revenue raised by this increase will pay back the interfund loans that are authorized by resolution number 1586. So Exhibit 2 in your packet is resolution 1586, which authorizes the interfund loans from the city's water and sewer utility funds. This will lend $750,000 from each fund and to the general fund. It'll be a total of $1.5 million that'll be paid back within the 36 months at a fixed interest rate of 0.5%. The interest rate reimburses the utility funds for the opportunity cost, which is the interest the funds would earn in a local government investment pool. There's no penalty for early repayment of the loan. In addition to passing the ordinance and the resolution this evening, the council must also appropriate $1.5 million in loan proceeds, which are authorized in resolution number 1586 for the litigation costs. So council, tonight, the recommendation from staff is to adopt the ordinance number 20C-20, pass resolution number 1586, and then appropriate $1.5 million in loan proceeds for litigation costs. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions by council members for the Chief of Administration or for the City Manager? Seeing none, there's actually three recommended motions before us for consideration. The first is a motion to adopt ordinance number 20C-20, temporarily increasing utility taxes to raise additional revenue for potential litigation to enforce the terms of the city's 2017 settlement agreement with Sound Transit. Is there a motion by a city council member to that effect?
So moved.
Second. Okay, I believe it was Councilmember Jacobson who made the motion, and I did not catch the second.
I think it was Councilman Reynolds made the motion, and I seconded.
Okay, well,
Is that right, Greg?
you both have very deep voices.
Maybe Dave
so I
seconded, I don't
apologize.
know.
Okay, so Councilmember Reynolds made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Jacobson.
I'd also be happy to have Jake get the glory of voting for tax increases, so that's fine.
Well, I'm going to vote for it here in a minute, so
Okay.
you got me.
City Clerk, please conduct the roll call.
Councilmember Anderl. I see a thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Neese,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker,
Aye.
Mayor Wong,
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
and Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the second motion here is to pass resolution 1586, authorizing interfund loans in the amount of $750,000 each for a combined total of $1.5 million from the city's water and sewer utility funds to the general fund. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Then moved by Councilmember Rosenbaum and seconded by Councilmember Jacobson to pass resolution number 1586. City Clerk, please conduct the roll call.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Mayor Wong,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderl,
Aye.
Councilmember Neese,
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum,
Aye.
and Deputy Mayor Weicker.
Aye.
Thank you. The last motion is one to appropriate $1.5 million in loan proceeds authorized in resolution number 1586 for litigation costs. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Second.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Jacobson and seconded by Deputy Mayor White to appropriate $1.5 million in loan proceeds litigation costs. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Neese,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Weicker,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderl,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobson,
Aye.
Councilmember Reynolds,
Aye.
Councilmember Rosenbaum,
Aye.
with pizza, and Mayor Wong.
Aye. Great, thank you very much. And thank you to the city administration. The fifth item of regular business is Agenda Bill 5754, City Council Direction Proposed PIC Recommendations to the SCA Board of Directors. This is something that I and Councilmember Mom wanted to put on tonight's agenda. You were previously provided with 3 discussion packets from the September 9 PIC meeting that occurred on Wednesday. Again, I serve as the city's representative on the PIC, and for the public, it's the Public Issue Committee of the Sound City Association. And Councilmember Rosenbaum serves as the city's alternate representative. So the first discussion packet was simply the SCA Draft 2021 Legislative Agenda. And it was only provided for information purposes only, and also to provide perhaps the council with ideas on what issues Mercer Island might want to include in its legislative agenda that is shared with our 41st district representatives and our senator. So I asked, I'm not sure if it's going to be the city manager or the city administration who's going to sort of describe our legislative agenda process.
Sure. I'm going to take that one. Thank you, Mayor Wong.
Okay.
Council, just to reiterate, we, as a city council, you adopt a legislative agenda or legislative platform annually. We typically bring that to you in October, and I think I had said I would put that on the planning schedule and failed to do so. Probably anticipating October 20th right now for that to come before you. So what's important here is most cities don't adopt their agendas until the October, early November timeframe. Typically our partners and other organizations we work with in conducting our business, Association of Washington Cities, SCA, and the list goes on, adopt their platforms first. We use that, we use those, one of many opportunities for input to inform our own legislative platform. So I will encourage those of you that are serving as external representatives to outside groups to make sure you're routing those agendas to me, and certainly share them with your colleagues on the council. And then we also often have our own, certainly our own priorities that will be folded in. So if you have feedback, particularly council, I'm trying to schedule a round of check-in meetings with each of you individually. Send your thoughts and suggestions my way.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess the other thing that was discussed, it was emphasized quite heavily that by the Deanna Dawson, who's the executive director, that they're trying to keep the legislative agendas very tight and focused, in particular because the state legislature is probably going to be devoting a lot of time on budgetary issues, and so not a surprise. So anyway, that's they're trying to keep their agendas very short, and so that was the kind of the message that they wanted to share with the cities. So anyway, thank you very much for that. And then the second discussion packet was actually entitled Affordable Housing Committee, but the focus tonight is really simply on HB 1590, which is the Councilmanic Authority for Affordable Housing. The PIC was interested in knowing if any city was actually considering imposing some or all of the sales tax levy amount that a city is authorized to do under HB 1590. Basically, it's 1/10 of 1% additional sales tax can be authorized, and that additional funding goes to affordable housing. So if the city council is not interested in imposing such a sales tax levy, Dave or I will certainly convey that message to the PIC. If the city council is interested in imposing such a sales tax levy, Dave and I will convey that message as well to the PIC. But that also means that the staff will need to be directed to begin preparing the documentation to process that additional sales tax levy. So it shouldn't be as any surprise, but most of the cities that were at the PIC meeting, those who spoke up and had already discussed this with their city councils, nobody was terribly excited about imposing an additional sales tax. So I'm sort of just looking to see if people are sort of in agreement that that's sort of where we are. General thumbs up, yeah, okay. I'm gonna assume, yeah, okay. I'm gonna assume that we are not interested, okay? So I will, either Dave or I will convey that to the PIC. Then the follow-up question that occurred was, if you were able to, if you had a chance to read the materials, you also know that King County itself, the council, King County Council, has the ability to impose the sales tax countywide. And so the early indications are that Al Constantine is probably going to advocate for this increased sales tax levy. And not sure, obviously it's up to the King County Council to approve, but there's that indication. So the PIC wanted to know if King County does in fact put this sales tax levy before, it's a councilmanic, so the King County Council can actually impose this levy without going to the voters, okay? So if that occurs, the question to the PIC members, to you, to all the other cities, was, do we need to provide some guidance, guardrails, suggestions directed to King County on how these funds are going to be used? And so kind of a more general question for you guys. I don't know if you have any thoughts. Some people wanted to make sure that King County was aware that they needed to cooperate, collaborate with the various cities. They needed to consider geographic geography in terms of how the money is spent or where it's spent. So those are some of the things that came up in the PIC discussion. I don't know if you have any other issues or questions. Councilmember Andel.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would not be in favor of the countywide tax. If the county decides unilaterally to do it through the county council, I think then the money needs to be returned proportionally to the cities from which it's raised for their, contributions either to ARCH or whatever we want to do for affordable housing. But, so on that affordable housing issue in particular, yes, and on legislative priorities in general, I have two words, always: local control.
Okay. I think local control is certainly, I think, fairly unanimous. I think people like. So.
Yeah, but it's like their fifth priority. It's like, oh, well, once we get everything else done that we want to do that's regional, then we'll go with local control, which is, those two concepts are antithetical.
Okay, all right. Anybody have any other comments they want to share that we can, either Dave or I can pass on to the PIC? Councilmember Reynolds.
Yeah, I actually want to express a contrary view to Councilmember Anderl. I think affordable housing money works best when it can be efficiently deployed with economies of scale. And the dollars we're talking about here that would go back to Mercer Island would not be enough for us to do anything. So I'm not sure that insisting the money come back locally is proportionally is a wise decision.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would just offer, without raising my hand again, that it could contribute to our, some of our mandatory or voluntary ARCH contributions, and thereby preserve other revenues that are already within the city for other city-specific things.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, I don't see anybody else wanting to weigh in, so I'm going to go to the third discussion packet, which was entitled Vision 2050. But again, the focus tonight is only on the proposed Snohomish County amendment to Vision 2050. Just a quick background. The PSRC Executive Board is going to be taking up Vision 2050 on September 24, 2020, which is the reason why it has kind of a short time fuse to get kind of feedback on this Snohomish County amendment. SCA actually has 3 members on the PSRC Executive Board. The PIC is soliciting input from PIC members on this amendment that's proposed by Snohomish County. This input is intended to be shared with the SCA representatives on the PSRC Executive Board. As you probably know, these SCA representatives are not representing their respective cities, but they're there to vote in accordance with the majority position of the SCA members. So in short, the Snohomish County Amendment wants to increase the rural development in Snohomish County from 3% of the projected population and employment growth through 2050, which basically is 13,000 people. They want to increase the 3% to 6% of the projected population and employment growth, which is adding an additional 13,000 people for a total of 25,000. I'm sorry, an additional 12,000 people, which brings it all up to 25,000 people. Most of the discussion that occurred at the PIC on the 9th was in opposition to this proposed amendment, largely based on concerns about the environmental impact. Increasing the growth in the rural area, many felt, is contrary to the goal of the GMA, which was to concentrate growth in the urban areas and to prevent sprawl. Others mentioned that compared to housing an additional 12,000 people in an urban area, if you house an additional 12,000 people in the rural area, you actually result in a tremendous increase in the number of trees that are cut down and increase the amount of impervious surface. There's also concerns just raised about, again, due to the sprawl, increasing transportation travel time, requiring infrastructure, roads, and the cost in maintaining the infrastructure. Again, this is a general discussion, and they simply wanted to get some sort of consensus whether or not PIC member, Mercer Island Council, City Council had any feelings one way or the other regarding the Snohomish amendment. And again, we would just simply bring back our viewpoint to the PIC and then they would share it with the SCA representatives. So, Councilmember Rowe.
My hand was actually left over from before, but it's worth, I do have a thought that this idea of increasing the urban growth, or it's the rural growth, I would be opposed to for the same reasons you just mentioned.
Okay. Councilmember Neese.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say that if increasing the number of people in the rural growth area is, if it meets the end of making the planning match the reality, then that's fine, because I think that's really what's going on here. You have a lot of people that are not seeking out the urban growth area. The suburbs are getting expensive, and they're pushing out into the rural areas to go into new suburbs. And that's been kind of the migration. And what we're seeing, and I've looked at this numbers, is that the growth requirements within the urban basin aren't being met. They're being met outside. And if this trues up with that, then so be it. It makes what is happening look intentional when really it's somewhat unintentional. The question I have is, why are we talking about people and not housing units? Because Craig and I had a robust discussion about units versus people, and now we're talking people. Does 13,000 people then turn into units?
Yeah, good question. The information we had was focused on people, but you're absolutely right. Obviously, that translates into if you use like 2.5 people per household or something. I mean, bottom line is it's going to increase the number of houses that are built or out in the rural area. And that's where you get concerned about roads and traffic and impervious surface. But you're right, it's really about housing units.
And the reason I bring that up is that, Craig and I went through the exercise of looking at the data of the original Growth Management Act allocation of units, and then what was the population of Mercer Island as recognized by PSRC, and then what was the recognized population of Mercer Island year over year over year throughout that plan. And now here we are very close to the 2020 census results, which would true up a decade of basically estimate upon estimate upon estimate of how many people really are in the jurisdiction. But the data, based on everything that is published, says that the number of people per units is much higher than what was expected. So 13,000 people at some sort of 10-year-old actual people per unit could be really fraught with errors. Like, you could really overshoot 13,000 by not waiting for the 2020 census. So I would say wait for good data and then make an assessment of how many units you would authorize in Snohomish County. But I think it's a foregone conclusion. I think they're going to have to do it because the people are moving there anyway.
Okay. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I understand something. You're saying that you're not opposed to the amendment. I mean, it looks like perhaps because the data supports that's.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it because I think it's the reality that's happening.
Okay. Councilmember Jacobson.
I'm not opposed to the amendment, and my reasons are entirely anecdotal. I see young members in our church who come to Mercer Island, live at Shorewood or some other multifamily thing, and start having children, and they want, as many of us do, to have a home, own a home, and it's impossible for these people to own a home on Mercer Island unless they have generational wealth. And so where they move, almost without exception, is out to the fringes in areas which were at one point rural, because that's the only place they can afford to purchase a home. And I'm concerned about the environment and all these kinds of things, but I'm really reluctant to say, well, you're just too late, pal. You're going to have to live in the urban area. And so for those reasons, and the ones that Salim cited, which is the reality is going to overtake any good intentions here, I would support that amendment because I think it's basically a ratification after the fact.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember Reynolds.
I just have question for Councilmember Neese, and this is not intended as a challenge, but a genuine curiosity question. But before I do, I just want to thank you for bringing up the housing units things. I think that has been a source of real confusion in the community. And the data we looked at, I assume you would agree, shows that we're essentially on track for our housing unit growth. We're way ahead on the population growth that might have been implied by that based on what we thought at the time. But in housing unit growth, we're on track and have not satisfied yet the long-term housing growth target for 2030. But for what it's worth, your comment about ratifying what's already happened or whatever the term is you used, can you just clarify what you mean, since we're talking about a plan through 2050? Are you suggesting that the numbers they're talking about is actually for 2050 has already happened in that rural area?
So are you talking about my comment or Jake who made that comment about ratifying?
Yours, sorry.
So I didn't use that phrase, but what I'm basically saying is that is the behavior that the market's seeing. If you go to Marysville, if you go to Arlington, if you go to any of the very pushed out suburbs or rural areas, like really they are, that's where the development's occurring. We know.
So some suggestion that they've already got the numbers there. It's just that's where the trend is happening, that people are wanting to move, you're saying.
I mean, there's demand for reasonably priced houses in the suburbs, and that's where they're being built because land values.
Okay.
You know, I think it's kind of a folly to have a long-range land use plan that doesn't acknowledge what's really happening. I mean, I've been in meetings with Dow, and Dow has said, this is the headwind that we face, is that people are moving to the suburbs, and that's adding to the carbon emissions of the region. And that's a reason why, for all the benefits that we've seen with electrification, with mass transit, we still have a slight growth curve in carbon emissions because what we're dealing with is a population growth problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, folks. Again, we'll just share these comments. And again, PIC will share them with their SCA representatives. So that, Councilmember Rosenbaum, was there anything? I mean, anything else? I mean, I think that's pretty much what was asked of us to provide.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. And now that brings us to other business and planning schedules. So City Manager Jesse Bond.
Just a couple brief reminders. I hit this at the beginning of the meeting. We will have a special meeting on Tuesday, September 22nd. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your flexibility. I know we've added a number of special meetings, and I do appreciate you accommodating those requests. 2 agenda items that evening. First of all, I'll be providing a preview of the biennial budget. Really just wanted to give you an opportunity to see the organizational structure that will be included in my proposed budget, 21-22 budget that will be handed off to you October 1st, and give us a chance to talk through that in advance of getting into the numbers. We're also bringing the thrift shop project update to you and planning to talk a little bit more about the operational plan we have to start accepting donations. It's still preliminary, but I want to be able to share that we're making some progress there. Council, I am anticipating starting that night with an exec session. The timing and length of the start time will be 5 o'clock. The length of the exec session, I'm not entirely certain, but we're working on that right now. I also am not going to make tomorrow's traditional deadline of getting the packet out. I've shared that with you a couple times. If any citizens are watching, I just need to acknowledge it won't be out until Thursday night or possibly Friday morning. It's just a turn time problem when we've got back-to-back meetings. So then we'll have a week off. Looking ahead, you've got 3 council meetings in a row, October 6th, October 13th, and October 20th. So your first budget hearing, just a reminder, is October 13th. We will follow that up. Actually, I should say budget discussion, October 13th. And then really most of the council meetings from here until budget adoption will be focused on some component of the budget. So budget season is here. Your budget's gonna look just a little bit different. We're scaling it back and really focusing on what matters. So I'm looking forward to beginning that work with all of you, and that is all I have, Mayor Wong.
Thank you very much. So any upcoming council member absences? Okay, then we go to council member reports. So I'll go ahead, Councilmember Anderall.
Thank you. Nothing in particular. I think we are going to have an Open Space Conservancy Trust meeting in October and a utility board meeting in September. So I'm looking forward to getting back as liaison to those groups, and we'll report any significant developments after that.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Reynolds.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Rosenbaum.
Mayor, I think you covered a lot of the PIC activity. The PTA Legislative Committee is finalizing their schedule for meetings. And if the council will indulge me for a second, I just want to say something about what we've learned in the last 24 hours or so about the what's going on at the high school, where a student submitted, my understanding is for the whole school to see, some very graphic and inappropriate anti-Semitic images for the school to see. I want to thank the school. They've been very swift in responding, but I think it's important for us as a council to put a stake in the ground. Our community is better than that. I know we are. In the event that there's any high school kids that want to talk about it, I'm always here, and I know the rest of the council is here as well. Our community is better than that. We're stronger than that. But I think it's important to call that out and really put a stake in the ground against this kind of behavior.
Great. Thank you. I think we all agree with that. Deputy Mayor Weicker.
Nope, nothing.
Councilmember Jacobson.
Two things. One, excuse me, I'm our liaison to the East Side Transportation Partnership, and their meetings have been combined with a bunch of other things, and the notices for which come out at the very last second. And it was this morning, and I had another commitment, and I couldn't attend it, so I'm delinquent in that. The other thing I was going to say is to recognize some volunteers, specifically Jackie Dunbar, Sarah Fletcher, Virginia, whose last name I'm spacing out on, and a number of others who have done an absolutely amazing job of eliminating ivy and blackberries in the area between Homestead Park and West Mercer. And if you go by there, as I do every day, there are these giant piles of refuse, and it's amazing what these volunteers have managed to do in the last inside the last year, clean this area out and hopefully let nature go back in a way without invasive species. And our hat should go off to these volunteers who've done this selflessly and thoroughly and very persistently. So as your Parks and Rec liaison, I guess that's the connection to my last comment. But great work by these volunteers and symbolic of what volunteers do for the city.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Neese.
Only thing I'll add is that with respect to the conversation about drive-through flu shots earlier this evening, I've already reached out to Rite Aid, and Rite Aid's already said that they want to participate, so look for more on that. I know based on going there that they had, my vaccination was just shy of 1,000 mark for them. So there's a good number of people going through Rite Aid to get vaccinations, so drive-through would be extremely productive.
Great, thank you. I have a few things to report. So this past September 2, I attended the King County Regional Water Quality Committee meeting, and I mentioned this to Councilmember Randall as well, but a lot of the discussion focused on things that might be impacting utility rates in the future. We didn't talk about that specifically, but certainly there were a couple of things that were discussed that have rate implications. One of them is the county is in the process of developing, I think some of you may be tracking this as well, but they're developing a clean water plan to ensure the quality of water in this region is good for future generations. State of Washington Department of Ecology is proceeding on the development of requirements for a general permit, sewer plants and other facilities that will that discharge nutrients into Puget Sound. So this general permit is going to require additional expenditures for facilities. I mentioned this to Jason Kittner, and basically the folk at this committee encourage city members of the Metropolitan Water Pollution Abatement Advisory Committee, also known as MUPAC, to attend these meetings so that we can be kept apprised of what utility rate impacts might be forthcoming. Again, this is something down in the future. It's not imminent, but something that we just need to be aware of and monitor. You should be receiving within the next few days, if you haven't already, an email from the SCA encouraging folks to sign up next year for the regional committees. And so anyway, when you do look at it, I hope you will consider submitting your names for these regional committees. On Friday, September 11, I attended a K4C Outreach Committee meeting. Just remind you folks, this is open to anybody who wants to sign up. There is a K4C elected official work session on October 8, 2020 from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And some of the things that will be discussed include the possible 2021 legislative agenda, the King County Climate Action Toolkit, and the statewide greenhouse gas emissions target there'll be a discussion about the gas emission targets, and then earlier today, I think the city manager sent you a copy of an email string. Again, this is an amendment that was proposed that might have impacted the amount of money from the King County Parks levy available to cities and towns. Fortunately, King County Chair Claudia Balducci, in response to letters, emails from various cities, including one that I was able to send out early this morning, they withdrew that amendment. She was not the maker of the amendment, but she had opposed it, and she was able to convince the maker, apparently, to withdraw it. So that's a good result. I appreciate the efforts from King County Councilwoman Balducci for that. And so that's the end of my report. And next, we have on the agenda an executive session. The City Council will recess and go into an executive session for approximately 60 minutes to discuss with legal counsel pending or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, close paren, small I, close paren, for approximately, again, 60 minutes. All council members, city attorney, and staff will be participating remotely using teleconferencing technology provided by Microsoft Teams. No action will be taken. There being no further business to come before the City Council, the time is now 8:20 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Again, as a reminder, City Council members, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the broadcast, and we will, I suppose, it'll be about 5 minutes before we reconvene in executive session.